Americans believe they understand winter because they've seen snowstorms on TV, experienced the occasional cold front, or lived through a few icy mornings. But nothing prepares them for what happens the moment they step into a real Canadian winter. It's not just the temperature, it's the atmosphere, the attitude, and the way Canadians move through the cold with a level of calmness that feels unreal. The air is sharper, heavier, and somehow cleaner. Snow doesn't just fall, it dominates, blanketing everything in sight, burying roads, swallowing cars, and transforming entire cities overnight. Yet Canadians walk through it like they're stepping into a familiar routine instead of a natural disaster. Americans expect chaos, canceled plans, panic, and people rushing indoors for safety. But instead, they see Canadians continuing life as if the cold is simply a mild inconvenience, like adjusting a zipper or pulling on a hat. They shovel sidewalks with a smile, scrape ice off windshields while chatting with neighbors, and send kids to school with a level of confidence that confuses Americans. And that's when it hits them. Winter in Canada isn't something Canadians endure. It's something they've mastered. And the habits they've built around it don't just surprise Americans, they shock them. The first winter habit that completely baffles Americans is the sight of cars plugged into electrical outlets everywhere. Parking lots, driveways, workplaces, even outside homes. To Americans, it looks like some futuristic charging station experiment or a country that collectively bought electric cars overnight. But the truth is far more extreme. Canadian winters can freeze engines solid, turning oil into thick sludge and draining car batteries instantly. Without a block heater warming the engine, your car won't even start. This isn't optional, it's survival. Canadians instinctively know when it's cold enough to plug in, how long to leave the cord attached, and which outlets are safe to use. They can tell by the air, the smell, the way frost forms on windows, even the feel of the wind. Americans from places like Texas, Georgia, California, or Florida stare in disbelief at the rows of plugged-in vehicles glowing softly in the night. It looks like a scene from a sci-fi movie, but for Canadians, it's simply part of winter life. An unspoken rule of survival they learned before they could drive. And this is only the beginning of the habits Americans call crazy. Ask any American child what happens when snow starts falling, and they'll tell you, school shuts down. But in Canada, schools remain open in conditions that would shut down entire American states. Americans watch in disbelief as Canadian kids walk to school through temperatures so cold it hurts to breathe. Their eyelashes freeze, their breath turns to mist instantly, and the snow piles so high it nearly covers their boots. Yet they move with ease, laughing, playing, dragging sleds, and throwing snow into the air like it's confetti. Their parents wave them off calmly, unfazed by the blizzard around them. Teachers greet them with warm smiles as if nothing unusual is happening. Americans, meanwhile, are terrified just watching this. They can't understand how children, actual little kids, are walking through conditions colder than some freezers. But Canadians grow up with a different mindset. Winter is not dangerous if you're prepared. Kids learn how to layer, how to walk on ice, how to choose the right boots, and how to protect their skin. They develop a level of winter confidence that feels almost superhuman to Americans. And once again, what Americans call crazy, Canadians simply call normal. One of the most unbelievable winter habits Americans witness is how Canadians don't hide from the cold. They run into it. Americans expect that when temperatures drop, people stay indoors, fireplaces crackle, and families gather under blankets. But Canadians, they strap on skates and head straight onto frozen lakes, spinning across surfaces that look like polished glass. They build ice fishing huts in the middle of frozen oceans of ice and spend entire days sitting in them. They skate on outdoor rinks surrounded by snowbanks taller than people. They drink hot chocolate outside while snow falls heavily around them. Winter festivals appear everywhere. Glowing lights, ice sculptures, fire pits, music, food stands, as if the cold makes everything more magical rather than more uncomfortable. Americans, bundled in multiple layers, struggle to understand how Canadians can stand in freezing temperatures for hours while smiling and laughing. They call it wild, they call it extreme, they call it insane. But to Canadians, winter activities aren't a challenge. They're a celebration. Winter becomes a social event, a seasonal identity, and a source of pride that binds communities together. And to Americans, that mindset is one of the craziest winter habits of all. Another winter habit that absolutely shocks Americans is the way Canadians drive in conditions that would shut down entire U.S. cities. Americans panic when a few snowflakes hit the windshield, but Canadians navigate through full blizzards with a calmness that feels unreal. Roads that look like polished sheets of ice are treated like regular highways. Canadians steer with gentle hands, brake without panic, and take corners with a confidence Americans can't even imagine having. They know when to switch to winter tires, how to pump the brakes on ice, how to feel the subtle traction under the wheels, and how to read the snow like a map. To Americans, who avoid driving the moment the road looks slippery, this skill level feels superhuman. Canadians shovel their cars out in minutes, clear off inches of ice with special tools, and then casually merge into traffic while sipping hot Tim Hortons. Americans watch in disbelief as cars drift slightly during turns, yet still stay perfectly controlled. And when the snowfall gets heavy, Canadians don't cancel plans. They just leave 5 minutes earlier. This exact behavior is what Americans call insane, but for Canadians, driving in dangerous winter conditions isn't bravery. It's just routine. When Americans think of shoveling snow, they imagine a miserable, exhausting chore done only when absolutely necessary. But in Canada, snow removal is practically a morning fitness routine, and everyone participates. Canadians wake up early not because they have to, but because they know the driveway won't clear itself. They grab shovels with an almost cheerful determination, carve pathways through knee-deep snow, and attack huge piles as if they're made of feathers. Neighbors help neighbors without being asked. People clear public sidewalks on their way to work. Entire families shovel together, turning it into a bonding moment instead of a burden. And when Americans see someone using a snowblower at 6 a.m., wearing pajamas under a parka and humming a tune, they can't believe the level of enthusiasm. Canadians treat shoveling as part of life, a warm-up exercise, a ritual, even a point of pride. The wildest part is how fast they work. What would take an American an entire morning takes a Canadian 15 minutes, and they do it with a smile. To Americans, this level of winter strength and endurance feels crazy. But to Canadians, it's simply what the season demands. You don't fight winter, you work with it. After witnessing these winter habits, Americans start to understand something deeper. These routines aren't just about surviving the cold. They're about shaping a culture. What Americans call crazy, Canadians call everyday life. And these small behaviors reveal something powerful about the country itself. Canadians don't see winter as an enemy. They see it as a teacher, a challenge that builds resilience, patience, and community. It forces people to depend on one another, to act with kindness, to stay calm in discomfort, and to prepare instead of panic. Americans often leave Canada with a newfound respect, not just for the weather, but for the people who thrive inside it. They realize that behind every wild winter habit is a country built on quiet toughness, gentle strength, and a kind of unity that only extreme conditions can create. And that's the real shock. Canada isn't just cold, it's resilient, it's steady, it's strong. And once Americans see how Canadians face winter without fear, they never look at the season the same way again. Canadian winters don't just shape the weather, they shape the people. They build a culture where challenges are met with calmness, where communities pull together, and where resilience becomes an everyday skill. Americans who witness these habits see more than just snow and ice. They see a country that has mastered the art of surviving the harshest season with grace. But the biggest question remains: how did Canada develop a winter culture so strong that even nature's worst can't break it? In the next Global Encounter, we dive into the deeper reasons behind Canada's winter resilience and why the country remains one of the calmest, safest places on Earth. Make sure you subscribe, because this story is only getting colder and far more interesting.